Welcome, everybody. My name is Mike. I'm actually living in New Jersey right now, and I work for Eduscape. Eduscape is a professional development company. We work with Robo Wunderkind. With me, I have two colleagues. My one colleague is Michelle. She's at the conference table. She's giving you a little wave. She also is a learning leader at Eduscape. And then we also have another colleague who actually has my picture in it because we switched accounts today. His name is Mark, and you probably met him at TCEA. If you saw him in Texas, I was also there. I was just in the Epson booth. So we're excited that you are here today. We're going to spend the next 30 minutes just exploring Robo Wunderkind, giving you an overview of the philosophies, the hardware, and Robo's story. So we're going to go through some logistics to start off, and then we'll dive into the content a little bit deeper. So
we're going to start with today's agenda. So we're going to wrap up introductions here in a second. Then we're going to move into what is the story of Robo Wunderkind, and that's actually going to shape today's presentation as well. We'll dive into what the modules or the blocks are, how they're used, into the coding atmosphere of how you code with Robo. Then we'll talk about the pedagogies that are aligned with it, and then finally end with some Q&A. Today's learning outcomes are: identify the modules including the Robo Wunderkind education included in the Robo Wunderkind education kit. Explain the skills that are developed as a result of integrating Robo Wunderkind into your curriculum. And finally, explore Robo Wunderkind pre-made curriculum. So we do have a community code today. Please keep your mic on mute if you have that option to help limit distractions. Also, if you have that camera option, please be aware of your surroundings and try and maybe keep it off. Also, please ask questions in the chat. We'll try to answer them as best as possible throughout the presentation. If not, we're going to address them via email.
Do we have any questions about anything so far? Mark is actually going to be fielding that chat for any of your questions, so he'll be interacting with you back and forth, but it'll probably come through as my name is Mike. But if we're ready to go, we're going to dive into the Robo Wunderkind story. And the story is actually going to begin with our friend named Sam. Now, Sam is a 6-year-old Spanish speaker, and Sam realized something. He really wants to learn how to code, and he wants to learn because there's a couple of reasons. One, it's the way of the future. He looks around him. He has a cell phone. He has a TV, and he realizes that coding is everywhere. But there's a problem, is that a lot of coding is not accessible to Sam, especially at his age and the language that he's speaking. So Robo Wunderkind realized something. They realized that there's a lot of kids just like Sam. And what they realized is that a lot of the hardware that is out there for robotics and coding is just not very kid-friendly. For example, it's sharp, it's smaller. Kids are really struggling to put things together. The electronics are just not kid-friendly, simple as that. And for Spanish speakers or non-English speakers, or maybe Sam just doesn't know how to read yet, the coding languages that are very text-based heavy presents a challenge. So Robo Wunderkind realized this is a really good opportunity for us to bring kids into the 21st century by making coding a lot more accessible to them. And the way that they did that is that they took that hardware and they took that language and they simplified it and they gave kids like Sam access. So what we see is that this is just a normal ultrasonic sensor. We see this in a lot of the hardware that that robots have, but there's an opportunity here. Now we put it into a block that looks a lot more kid-friendly. Students feel a lot more of a connection to the blocks because they're familiar with it, and it teaches them a lot of skills at their level, giving them access to those 21st century skills. So, for example, within the 3 years that Robo Wunderkind has been attempting to give kids access to coding in a more meaningful way, over 80,000 kids have been playing with Robo and have been using him as a tool. 12,000 robots have been sold, and he's in 15 different countries. Now, I want you to lock that number into your brain because we're going to revisit that in a little bit when we're diving into the coding platforms. But 15 different countries. And for those teachers who feel not quite confident yet to start integrating Robo into their lessons, there's over 80 hours of educational content. And again, we'll revisit that as well. So let's talk about these Robo Wunderkind modules. We're going to give you a brief overview. And you're going to see why kids like Sam would be able to connect with the Robo pieces on a new level. So when we talk about modules, we're actually talking about the blocks. So this is the one that you've already seen in the picture, and that's the distance sensor. But you'll also notice you have these other blocks like a DC motor. You have the servo motor. The DC motor goes 360 degrees. The servo motor rotates back and forth. You have connector blocks. You also have LEDs. You also have push buttons. Now, the modules that you're seeing here is kind of an overview of many modules. So some of these are in different kits. But what we're going to be focusing on really today is this education kit. So as you can see, these are the pieces that come in your education kit. And what I love about Robo Wunderkind is that how easy the pieces go together. So remember, we were talking about Sam and we were talking about that hardware that is, in some cases, very dangerous. In this case, you have your main block, which acts as your brain. And this is where the code is housed. Literally, you have these little universal connectors, and kids are able to just push them in and connect them. Now, what's great about this is that kids already do this stuff naturally. They're natural explorers. So as they're playing, they start to realize a couple things, right? Actually, they probably don't realize it, which is even better. As they're starting to put the pieces together, they're working on a couple of different skills. They're working on their fine motor skills. They're working on their hand-eye coordination, but they're working on so much more than that. They're working on those computational thinking skills that they need to succeed in the 21st century. The kits even come with a separator to allow the students to start to work on their hand-eye coordination and their fine motor skills. So when you receive the education kit, this is a snapshot of what you would receive right now. In the near future, there may be more pieces that are added into that educational kit as well. But do you have Legos in your classroom, or do you have kids that love Legos? There's a really awesome opportunity to integrate Legos and other makerspace materials alongside of the modules. So for example, you have these pieces that have a Lego integrator on top. These plug in to any of the Robo blocks or any of the Robo modules. If you have extra Legos hanging around, kids can actually customize, create, do whatever they want with the modules because of the accessibility and the flexibility to plug in these pieces. If you have construction paper, straws, string, anything that you have in your classroom that's makerspace, you can integrate that with Robo. This is the really nice part about this. There are pre-made builds if you wanted to create a driver, if you wanted to create a flashlight, a lighthouse. Those things you can do because they're integrated into the apps. However, if you want kids to just play and to just explore and to see how these pieces work together, or maybe not work together, they're able to do so because of the flexibility options that come alongside of the Robo modules.
With that said, Robo offers so many things just with the building aspect itself that coding brings every build to that new level. So like learners like Sam start to get excited about that coding aspect and they want to know what to do. So that all starts here with the main block. So the main block, like Mike was saying, is the brain of the operation. With the main block, this is where the charging starts. It takes about a little less than an hour to charge Robo completely, but what's great is he lasts for 3 hours. But even better, Robo has Bluetooth built in right here to the main block. The Bluetooth makes it so you don't need internet access because we all know how reliable the school's internet access can be. Because it does crash, and when it crashes, it does limit the technology we can use. However, with the Bluetooth in the main block, you can connect to any smart device, a tablet, a smartphone, or even your computer, and then put it up on your interactive smartboard. Then once you have the device you're ready to work with, there's 2 free coding apps. So learners like Sam are going to probably start with the Robo Live app. Here, Sam can build his coding confidence in a setting that's more like a remote control. Then as Sam really gets a hang of what Robo offers, he can move into that Robo Code app, and this is now where he builds logic statements, programs with actions and conditionals. So this is what the Robo Code app looks like when you're in it. What Sam does is he actually gets to use visual coding. Students like him who don't really understand English, or maybe are new language immersers, or maybe are not reading yet. This is an opportunity for them to learn to code in a new way. What they do is they take their blocks down at the bottom and they can drag it onto the programming screen. And all those blocks look like pictures, so they know what to associate it with. Then they can combine multiple codes together to make complex algorithms, and then put the program together by hitting play. Then Sam can take, once he is confident with that visual coding, he now, at the end of this March, will be able to take coding to a new level with the new Robo Blockly app, which is this Scratch-based software where he can take different block-based codes and learn to make new programs with variables, functions, inputs, outputs, things that he wasn't able to do before in just the RoboCode app. This is now geared more for like the older age groups, such as upper elementary school, even middle and high school. So Robo can really grow with the learner. So now Sam is really excited and happy that he can finally code with his friends.
But I know what you're thinking. I'm a teacher. I don't really know how to code yet. Now, me personally, I was in a classroom for 7 years, and working with code was not my strong suit. It wasn't until much later until I started to understand how it works. So what do you do if you're that teacher and you don't know where to start with the coding? Thankfully, Robo Wunderkind includes a lot of resources that make this a lot more accessible to teachers. So before we dive into those accessibility features, let's talk about what Sam is really learning, and then we'll see from the teacher's perspective why that is so important and why that works together with these modules. So number one, the physical. We kind of talked about this already. We said that when you start to put the blocks together, you're working on that hand-eye coordination, you're working on that spatial awareness, those motor skills that kids really need to start to develop from a very young age, but they're doing it in a safe environment with the blocks. Secondly, you have your cognitive skills. Now, every teacher knows the importance of our cognitive skills, right? So it's not just the 21st century skills just to get the 21st century skills. It's the realization that these truly are skills that kids need to succeed in the world that we know now, as well as a world that we don't even know yet. When we think of the 4 C's of communication and collaboration, I think back to that picture where Sam was excited that he was working with somebody else with Robo Wunderkind around a computer, learning how to code, how to collaborate, how to be creative, and how all of those critical thinking skills went into completing that. Secondly, you also have that barrier for many languages, which is if you're not an English speaker or if you don't know how to read, a lot of coding is based in text. Robo Wunderkind removes that roadblock and allows kids to be immersed in that visual coding. And when they feel ready, they're able to go into the Robo Blockly app once that's available in March. Furthermore, they're starting to learn digital skills. You're learning the digital citizenship skills if we're working on the computer, what that looks like, how to be respectful of other people's property, how to be respectful of other people's code, as well as this coding skills that are so important, learning the logic, the if-then statements, the conditionals, the actions, and that computational thinking development that is so important, that decomposition, the breaking down of problems into smaller parts, the recognizing of the patterns between what I know and what I'm seeing, and how those all come together. The abstraction of taking, hey, I want to make a lighthouse. How am I going to do that with some blocks and stuff? But kids can figure that out because they're getting the opportunity to do so with Robo. And then finally, the algorithmic design that is really found in those coding pieces, how to piece those actions together, the conditionals. So when you look at Robo, it's a very comprehensive approach to instruction because it teaches kids in so many different ways. But again, I understand as a teacher, you often think, now I have to learn how to code. How am I going to teach my kids how to code when I don't know how to code? But wait, there's more. So when we look at what Robo has to offer, we see that they have nearly 80 plus hours of activities. Why is that important? Well, if you were like me when I was just starting to learn how to code, I realized that I just needed a little bit of help. I need a little bit of guidance. And these lessons are all around things like traffic safety, animals, art. And it's geared more towards the younger kids, but they also have some elevated ones, such as one that focuses on Python. You have after-school activities, and it's all aligned to a various set of standards, which I'll get to in just a moment. But what's even more fantastic is that a lot of the skill development that comes from working with code and working with Robo, STEM is a natural integration there. So we look at things like the design engineering process, like the inquiry-based process, problem-based learning. And it's all incorporated into the curriculum in such a way that teachers are able to grab their lessons and start to implement Robo tomorrow if you wanted to. Now, looking into how this works for us and the standards, because the reality is we do have to hit standards as teachers. We have our state standards. We have our local standards. But there's so many other standards that we can also hit that enriches the learning. For example, UN sustainability goals, the computer science standards, the CESTA standards, the next generation science standards, Common Core standards, ISTE student standards, and most applicable to our Texas teachers in the room today, the TEKS. And if many of you were here at TCEA, you will have seen a booklet that had the connections between the Common Core, between CESTA, ISTE, as well as the TEKS. So bringing these lessons into your classroom is just step one. Step two is then taking it to the next step and saying, how can I integrate this into what I'm already doing? And Mark is actually responding to that question, Claire. It's a great question. She said, in a K-12 classroom, how many educational kits would you recommend? And I see Mark feverishly typing away there. So two students to one kit, Mark, just to clarify? Mark, is that 3 students to 1 kit, just to confirm?
That is correct. At a minimal level, 2 to 1 is optimal, Mike.
Perfect, thank you. Great question, Claire. So when we look at the whole view of what Robo can do, yes, it's playing with blocks, but it's so much more than that. It's making coding access to kids. So when we go back to our story of Sam, 21 years later, Sam now feels confident enough and has the abilities and has the critical thinking skills and the computational thinking skills that he needs in order to actually make a difference and innovate in a world that we don't even know that exists yet. So when we look back at those main points, Robo Wunderkind, it makes coding more accessible to students because it removes the language barrier. It allows students to work on skills that go way beyond simply just simply just content. You have critical thinking skills. You have collaboration and working together. Think about how much kids learn just from communicating and playing with each other. And these blocks can be the center point for that. And then on top of that, when it comes to teachers, feeling supported with plenty of resources, plenty of educational materials, that when you go back to your classroom, you have the resources that you need. So here's Sam. He's ready to go in the 21st century. And we have no doubts that your students can also do the same. So at this point, we have about 12 minutes left or so, which is actually more time than we expected. But this is a good time for you to ask us your questions. And please feel free to unmute your mics at this point. We want to have this conversation to make sure that when you walk away from this 30-minute period, you feel confident and ready to talk about Robo and how to bring him back to your school. And if you're not able to unmute your mic, feel free to just keep typing them in the chat.
Mike, I don't know if you even want to just show them like the next slide that we have created for them, just them
Sure.
help spark some ideas. It is just teacher and tech specialist resources and ideas that we have on what you may need to know, just overview of Robo Wunderkind when you bring it back to your classroom.
Absolutely. So if we do have technology specialists in the room or the tech department, a lot of the questions we often get just in general is, what do I have to do? So the nice thing about this is that the Robo Wunderkind is going to work on the devices that you have accessible already in your classroom. He's easy to charge. There's the 2 free apps and soon to be 3. So there's lots of options when it comes, and a lot of ease that comes with the technology side. But for the teachers, the nice thing is having your 3-hour battery life. So if you're using him for an experience, you'll be able to use him that entire time. So Linda asked us a question. She said, how much do the extra apps cost?
So their apps are all free right now, which is the best part, as well as all of their educational resources that you can get right off their website. Whether you have a Robo kit already or not, you can go in and see what they have available.
Thanks, Linda. There would not be a yearly fee. This is not a subscription-based program. The kits do come with the 80+ hours of curriculum, like Michelle has said, and additional components that would ever be added on. We would make that available for any current kits.
And if you did feel like you wanted more training on how to not only use the modules in a more specific way, if you wanted to see how this actually works when it comes to the planning side of bringing him into your, I keep referring to Robo Wunderkind as him, but it's really whatever identity you want to give the robot. But how to bring the robot into your curriculum. We also have an e-learning that is the Robo Wunderkind e-learning academy, and that will walk you through not only, we gave you a very brief overview today, but it'll walk you through the specific modules, how the modules work together, and not only how the modules work together, but what does this look like in your humanities class? What does it look like in your science class? And it walks through those pedagogical frameworks, such as backwards design, and it brings in the social emotional learning piece here. What does that look like? As well as, how do I make this more accessible to all my students, my general education students, my special needs students, whoever your population is, we address how to make these learning experiences accessible, just like it was to Sam in our story. Any other questions? I'll wait another 10 seconds or so.
Claire asked the question, is there a charging station to sell? So there's a charger that actually comes in the Robo Wunderkind kit, and all you actually have to do is just charge the main block. You don't have to charge any of the other modules or blocks that the kits come with because they all connect to it. So you don't have to worry about that. You can plug it in easily to your computer or any USB outlet that you have.
It is a micro USB, Claire, so the nice thing about that is that I often lose these suckers, but luckily there's also many around. So if you do happen to misplace one, you're able to grab any of the micro USBs you have around. It simply just plugs in, and then it plugs into any outlet, like Michelle had just said. So this is what it would look like. And then if there is an update to any of the software or to any of the modules, when you log in and you attach it by Bluetooth to your tablet or whatever device you're using, it'll actually update those modules for you, which is a really nice feature.
Yeah, you just have to hit OK.
Absolutely. Thanks for the question, Claire. Wait just a couple more seconds if you have any other questions. Thank you for participating with us and asking these questions. They're fantastic. I see that Linda's typing. I feel like we're like watching a sports game seeing this. It's so fun. Well, thank you all for joining us. Over the next couple hours, the next day or so, you'll be receiving an email just kind of giving you a little summary of the main points, as well as pointing you to more resources such as the Robo Wunderkind website. Feel free to search that now if you would like. That's a really great resource to look into, as well as all of you having Mark's email. So if you had more questions, please feel free to reach out to him or to reach out to us through Mark, however you would like. But we appreciate you taking some time on your Friday afternoon to spend with us to look a little bit more into Robo Wunderkind. We're going to hang around for another couple minutes. So if you want to hang around and have a quick conversation, we will be here. But if you need to get the kids and do whatever you have to do, feel free to do that as well. But thank you for coming and joining us, and we appreciate your attention.
Have a great weekend, everybody.